Okay, I want to go back to your description because, you've been in this space for a long time, and being a technical mind, some things come very natural to you. So in our conversation, you mentioned them in a very simple way, but it's not obvious to our listeners because they are not tech people. And so I want to go back and, if you like, dissect some of the things and then see if I'm saying things the right way. First of all, you mentioned measuring sales velocity. So I want listeners to understand what sales velocity is, because they usually look at sales. So this is not about dollars. This is about how many orders you're getting per day. And then that number at SKU level, it goes up and down, right? And then you have an average. So by sales velocity, you're referring to knowing that number at SKU level and then measuring that in terms of how it fluctuates. Is that the case?
Yes. So when I said sales velocity, yes, the simplest way to think about it is units per day sold. And knowing that number by itself, by the way, I mean, it's important, but it's not sufficient. What you really want to understand is how that number changes as you change the inputs to it. So the simplest one to understand is pricing, right? I mean, most people understand that most of the time, not always, there are some products where it's not true, but most of the time, if you lower the price, you sell more units. If you raise the price, you sell fewer units. Understanding the relationships between those two things, that's typically what you think of when you say price elasticity, right? How does your sales velocity change with pricing? That's really important because it could impact your inventory strategy. For example, the classic and simplest example is you have a product and your stock is running low and you're at risk of being out of stock. Amazon will penalize you if that happens too often. And so if you understand how your sales velocity, units sold per day, change with pricing, then one of the things you can do, and this is a very basic strategy, I'm sure most of your readers will probably be like, yeah, or listeners know, I know this, but one of your basic strategies would be, okay, I have inventory coming in. I need to make sure that my current stock lasts long enough to get replenished. Let me increase my pricing to reduce my sales per day, so my current stock is going to last long enough until it gets replenished. Now, you don't want to raise your prices more than you have to, because then you're just going to kill your sales, but you don't want to raise it too little because you'll run out of stock. And that's why understanding the relationship between cause and effect is really important for a brand. That's important on day one. And it's important even if you become $100 million brand. The difference between the day one and the $100 million brand is the complexity of the problem. The problem is not different. It's just the complexity of the problem, because you have more variables to track. You have more things you can change, but at its heart, it's the same idea, understanding the relationship between cause and effect. And once you understand that, you basically tinker with it, you make changes to get the goal that you want. And the goal that most brands want is to optimize their profit margin, maximize it, right? You want the biggest profit margin you can. That's why understanding these two things is important. It's what my co-founder and I are focused on as we build Symphony.